So right now we're going to be going through the difference between experimental and theoretical probability and how to compare the two. And we're going to get started here with this example about Dan rolling the number cube. So Dan rolled a number cube 20 times, and it looks like he landed on the number 3 14 of those times. So I've got that over here in yellow. Those are the results of the experiment. And it asks for number 1, what is the experimental probability of Dan rolling a 3 the next time that he's going to roll the number cube? So based on the results, we can see it reduces that there would be a 70% chance that he is going to roll number 3. Now for number 2 here, when setting up a proportion, we can predict how many times out of 80 he would land on the number 3. The question asks which best describes what would likely happen to Dan, or what would likely happen if Dan rolled the number cube another 80 times. Now, if he rolled another 80 times, we could predict that based on the results that he would get the number 3 56 of those times, which would still have a 70% experimental probability. However, the more trials that we conduct, the more likely that the outcome is going to end up being something similar to what we predicted. Okay, so answer choice A here is the correct answer. And in class, I've kind of talked about a couple of examples where we've gone through the more trials you conduct, the more likely you are to get closer to the theoretical probability. All right, now back up here for number 3. Howard tosses a fair coin 80 times. The coin lands on heads 60 of those times. So 60 out of the 80, we have the results here. And that happened 75% of the time. Now we want to know how this compares to the theoretical probability. Now y'all, when flipping a coin, flipping a coin, there is a 1/2 chance that you're going to land on heads. There's a 50% chance. So the results of our experiment here at 75% are more than the 50% theoretical probability. All right, for number 4, Malik has a spinner with 5 equal sections. The sections are labeled 15, 18, 20, 21, and 27. So I have labeled those sections right here. He spun the spinner 60 times, and it landed on an odd number 30 of those times. So it looks like, according to the results, half the time he landed on an odd number. Then it goes on to ask, how does this compare to the theoretical probability? Now down here in the spinner, what we can see is that we have 1, 2, 3 odd numbers, and 3 out of the 5 sections is a 60% chance. So theoretically, an odd number has a 60% chance. Now experimentally, it actually happened less than the 60%. So that's answer choice A. All right, let's go to the next page. Linda rolls a number cube labeled 1 through 6 a total of 90 times. The cubed land onto the number 5 16 times. So I've got the probability, the results, experimental probability of landing on a 5. It happened 16 out of 90 times. It asks what's the experimental probability of that happening and how does this compare to the theoretical probability. Now I want to remind you guys that the chances of us landing on a 5 would just be a 1 out of 6 chance. And in the calculator, that's the 0.166666 that goes on forever. So we're rounding that to about a 17% chance. Now the results here, the 8 out of 45, that is a higher percent chance than the 17. And to prove it, we can just see real quick in the calculator, the 8 out of the 45, when that reduces, that's the 17.7 repeating, versus here the 16, that's just a 0.16 repeating. So it's not bigger by much, but it is slightly bigger, so answer choice C. All right, for number 6, Kathy has a spinner with 8 equal sections, and they're just numbered 1 through 8. So she spins the spinner 80 times, and it landed on an even number 60 of those 80 times. So according to the results, 75% of the time, she is landing on an even number. It asks, how does that compare to the theoretical probability? And up here, I'm going to highlight for the even numbers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Half of them would be even. So the results, the 75%, is greater than the theoretical 50% that I have written right here that we would have expected. All right, now we're on the last one here. We have that Jonathan flipped a fair coin 120 times. It landed on tails up 65 of those times. So once again, the experimental probability, we have the results. And it simply asks what's the experimental probability that the coin is going to land on the tails up. And based on the results, 65 out of 120, it reduces. I divided both of them by 5. And the 13 out of 24, that rounds to about a 54% chance. All right, for the next part, describe what would happen if Jonathan flips the coin another 120 times. Now we can see here based on the results that he's pretty much flipping a coin and getting results that we would pretty much expect. We expect 50% of the time it'll land on tails. So the more trials that he conducts, the more likely we are to match our prediction. So this 54% is likely to get closer and closer and closer to 50%. And that concludes the video on experimental probability. Thank you.